Welcome everybody to Living Consciously TV, coming to you live from our Denver, Colorado studios. We are also streaming live on YouTube Live and at Hangouts, as well as at ConsciousEvolutionMedia.com. And I'm the founder of Conscious Evolution Media, going on 12 plus years and 15,000 plus shows, and we are no longer counting. It's just like McDonald's stopped counting, right?
Billions and
billions. We have stopped counting as well. So I'm your host and moderator, Coach Steve Toad, and our theme for this evening, fantastic theme, how to put distraction to rest. And I'm sure that there are a few viewers out there that are never distracted. Put your hands up as we go through the show so we can see them. So our guest this evening is somebody absolutely fantastic, been on our network a couple of times. I'd like to welcome Penny Zenker from the East Coast. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for being here. And we also have Dr. Rosie Kuhn joining us from state of Washington, where Jimi Hendrix was born. And I think that's the only thing that needs to be said about that, right?
That's right.
and we might have some more cast members joining us later on. And that will be great. So let's begin with this subject of procrastination. So I'm just kind of in the energy of every subject has two ends. So one is procrastination. What's the other, Penny?
Well, according to me and my sort of framework that I have of the productivity zone, the other side is if we're under-functioning on procrastination, then we're over-functioning with perfectionism, right?
Uh-huh. Okay. And then life kind of occurs in between, right? So do you feel that people kind of bang up against both of these ends? I'm also in the finance business. When I'm not here in the studio several times a week, I am in the finance business, and I can tell you and to the viewers that I have never seen so many people procrastinating, being distracted, being overwhelmed, being completely unfocused about what they need to be doing, and I'm talking about corporate staff, and I'm talking about customers. I mean, it's unbelievable. Shed some light on this subject of being distracted. Why are people distracted? Why is that happening?
Well, first of all, I want to say I like the fact that you liken distraction to procrastination, because most people don't. And when I think the difference there is, and why I like that you brought that up, is because procrastination is something we choose to do. And I would dare say that distraction is something that we choose to do. And a lot of people don't want to see it that way. However, that's why it becomes such a problem, because we're like an ostrich sticking our head in the sand saying that that's not the case.
But in my experience, and tell me yours, same thing with you, Dr. Rosie. In my experience, when I'm unwilling to or not want to deal with something, or I'm procrastinating, quote unquote, it never goes away.
We think that it does.
Matter of fact, it comes back usually with more energy, with more oomph, I guess, as I want to say. It just wants to get my attention even bigger.
As they say, what you resist persists.
Hey! Look what we have.
Yeah,
we have Linda Dyer joining us from Australia. Welcome to the show, Linda.
You must have been resisting me, because I just kept persisting.
Not at all. I would never resist you.
You're irresistible. You're irresistible.
How are the kangaroos? Are they roaming around?
Yeah. Did you see my picture on Facebook? I took it just for you. I've been in the country lecturing, and they were in our backyard. They were everywhere. When I walked of a morning, they were all over the place. And I thought of you, Steve. So
all right.
I said hello to them.
Awesome.
So the theme of the show for this evening, how to put distraction to rest, is what we're having a conscious dialogue about. So where we left off is why that when people procrastinate, at least in my experience, because I've done it, of course, that the problem doesn't really go away. So it's kind of easier. I kind of learned through my own experience, and the punishment that it comes is that it's easier and better just to deal with it head on.
Deal with the issue, the problem?
Yeah, deal whatever I'm procrastinating.
Okay.
Matter of fact, the way I do my day these days is that I do the things that in the past, this is many years ago, I would put off because, quote unquote, I had them categorized as a pain in the butt, or it's too difficult, and I completely switched my behavior. Is I take those things on first thing in the morning.
You take the hardest things on first.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I think
Right.
that was a really good book by what was his name? Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy used to say, "Eat the frog." In other words, do the hardest things first. And funnily enough, they're not so hard. They don't take so long.
Mm-mm.
And they're done in no time. And then you can get on, and then if you finished everything by lunchtime, go and treat yourself.
It's kind of a mindset thing. What do you think, Penny? Is most of the stuff that we're going to be talking about this evening, is most of it an issue with our mind, like how we make things up?
I believe it is. I mean, I think that our mind is our biggest distraction. I was talking to somebody today who, was saying that she's got so many things to do. She feels so overwhelmed, and it's all the other things that are going on in her life that won't stop inside. So, and whether people recognize it or not, our biggest distractions are the distractions that we create.
Wow.
Could
So
you
so
give
I go ahead.
Can you
Ruth.
give some examples of what we create, Penny?
So we have a lot of self-talk, right? So let's say, Steve, you start your day and you say you're going to eat that frog, but you say, you know what, I hate that frog. It has a gross texture, and I just don't want to go near it. And right, the more
Yeah, but
that self-talk.
I don't have that conversation. Penny, I don't have that conversation anymore.
Well, not anymore.
So what I do now, I don't even have a lot of dialogue going on. I'm just actually really focused on. I'm very intentional these days. That's the area that I work in right now. So I'm very intentional about everything that I do.
What shifted you from being procrastinating and distracted to focused and intentional? What was it that made the difference for you?
Well, what shifted me is that I really got in touch with my emotions and my feelings. And when Penny was talking about the ugly frog and all that stuff, so back then those things did not feel good, but I didn't necessarily recognize that they didn't feel good. But actually, that was not good for me. That was not a good treatment for my soul and for who I'm being. So today I just pay a lot of attention to what makes me feel good and what doesn't. And if it doesn't feel good, then I do something about it right away. I either get rid of it if it's not something that's useful to me, or it's not part of the focus I'm having in the moment, or I actually have distracted myself many times for being in a negative situation and thinking something positive or listening to music or whatever because I didn't want to continue with the negativity. Does that make sense?
So you're distracting yourself from the distractions.
So I actually find that there are positive ways of handling distraction, because I find sometimes in the corporate environment there is something going on that's really negative right now. And you know what? Instead of me staying there, I got to do something different. Is how I have it. I'm going to unplug from that because I don't want to be there. It's not really doing anything for me, other than I could just get involved, and I could have my button pushed, and then I can put some other people's buttons and push them. And guess what? That's going to do nothing good. Nothing positive.
So Penny, what is it? I think Steve, you were asking this question initially. It's like, what is it that has us distract ourselves? What is it that about life that has us keep distracting ourselves as opposed to just being in life, being, engaged in the activities that are in front of us? What is it that makes us distracted, makes us want to be distracted?
Right. Well, I think there's a lot of different things, but what I'd like to talk about tonight is there was a book some time ago. It was The Stuff Americans Are Made Of. It was, I think, back in the 70s. And it was interesting. They pointed out the 7 sort of elements of sort of the American culture. And I think that the American culture has been exported in that context. And 2 of those things I'd like to highlight, which is very interesting. One of them is urgency, is that we have, everything is good when it's in balance, but I think we're out of balance with our sense of urgency. So the fact that technology has made us so quickly in contact with one another, and that we put this urgency upon ourselves that, oh my God, I got an email from a customer, I have to respond right away. And I hear people on a day-to-day basis, they want me to come in and help to fix the situation, yet if you look at their behavior, it's not rational because they're fighting these urgencies. So instead of setting some policies and saying to the client, you'll get back to them within 24 hours, or give them a note and say, oh, we'll get back to you, by the end of the day. Set some policies, but because they're, I guess, don't want to set any rules, they're at kind of at the mercy of their urgency, their impulse. We're going back to the monkey brain, right?
Well, but Penny, don't you think that people, the reason why people are distracted constantly is because, first of all, they don't even know how to be focused. People are allowing the world and what's happening around them to take charge and run them and defend themselves against what's happening in the world, versus being aware that they happen to be the creators of what's happening right now. Do you believe, who's on this show right now believes that we create our own reality? I do.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So if my reality is like the way Penny has described some people, like they're constantly trying to respond to everything is chaotic, I guess that's a good word, they are responsible for that, to be created that way. It's not happening to them. They're creating it that way.
Well, there's partly that, it's an engagement with the culture, and the culture, in a sense, quite often is dictating something, and obviously we have a choice to either engage with the culture and the cultural norms, or do something different. And most of us are, and I think that there's a fear factor in all of this. In a sense, we distract ourselves so we don't engage with what we assume to be a scary or frightening or a threatening situation. So we avoid it for as long as we can through distractions. I think that's a big part of what we're doing.
And the distractions, actually, I believe, are in your own mind. So
Absolutely.
In your subconscious mind, where the filters are, as you were growing up, all those various experiences that we have form dendrites and neurons, and the dendrites are the pathways, if you will, or the strategies that we follow. So every time we're faced with a similar situation, we have a similar reaction or distraction, and that could be that I procrastinate. And if I put it off long enough, in the past, maybe somebody has done it for me and gone, oh, I'll do that, and they've taken it away, and then all of a sudden you're not in a situation where that's happening and you've got to do it. And so the procrastination can become a real fear of you actually taking charge of your world, like Steve said, and doing it. I like what Brian Tracy says in Eat the Frog, because it's like, let's put those hardest things first and get them done. Because the opposite of procrastination is to motivate oneself.
To
And
empower oneself, yeah.
But in order to get from procrastination to motivation, in NLP we call it a 4-step process. It's not an easy process. So we'd make it 4 steps. And so we get the client to actually think about, what is it I have to do to get me out of the initial procrastination? So that can be negative or positive. For example, for me, I brush my hip with my hand and go, come on, do the thing. And whatever that thing is I need to get on with, I need to go and do that. And so come on, do the thing. Whereas somebody else might say, okay, just take one step. Because that's where, Penny, that's where overwhelm comes in. And I believe when I'm coaching, overwhelm, if it appears in one area of your life, it appears in every area of your life. Because that becomes an habitual form of procrastination, and it lends itself to home, to work, to rearing children, to whatever, and it's like I give up. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to do first, so I'm not going to do any of it.
What the heck is overwhelm? Anyway, can somebody show it to me?
Show it to you?
What is it? What is it and where is it?
Okay, overwhelm is I've got to do this, 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 I've got to do this. So this I've got to do this. I've got to get the kids to school. I've got to get the husband to work. I've got to do this. I've got to bring home an income. I've got to run my business. Someone wants a phone call back. Oh my God, there's an email in. All of a sudden, I've overwhelmed. Too many things to do, and the necessity in my mind is they need to be all done now.
Right. That urgency.
Yeah.
So
like you were saying, absolute.
Angst and anxiety shows up.
This is actually part of the culture that you ladies were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Is that this culture is built in a way that it's about do, and it's not about do.
No.
As I'm learning for myself,
Mm-hmm.
I'm intentionally doing less and being more. Being more what? Being more connected to who I really am. And things just begin to flow. Things all get right into aligned into place versus me trying to like push it all together and wrestle everything to the ground. You know what I mean? That's what I see in corporate America is they all wrestling things.
Well, they all
people
look
give
like
orders to other people.
Yes.
Do this because this has to be done now, and just do it right now because if you don't do it right now, and then what people are noticing is they putting out fires and constantly, and there's not enough fire putter outers. Is that? I don't know if that's right.
There's no room for creativity. There's no room for inspiration. There's no room for innovation and actual productivity when we're just putting out fires. It's where burnout, no pun intended, burnout happens is because there's all this fire putting doing without any of the actual fulfillment of our human spirit within. So rather a lot of people say that within the corporate world, but also I think in a lot of other places, let's say the educational systems and stuff, where there's so much demand for an individual's time putting out fires with their students or whatever, that there's not much time for that place of fulfillment and engagement that creates thriving.
And I don't think it's just in corporate. I think
no, that's what I'm saying.
It's in general society.
Yes, I agree.
This morning I had an appointment. I was listening to some ladies, and one lady said to the other that she's got this little girl in year 9, which would be about 15 years of age, and she comes home after being at school for 7 hours. She comes home and she's got about 4 or 5 hours of homework. It's just too much. I said, when does she play? When does she get to learn who she is? When does she just be? And that's what you were saying, Steve. So if we're going to do this, then surely it has to be done at all levels, at home, at school, that the kids need to learn who they are. Not just the doing of homework is going to give them a grade. Understanding who they are, who they be, and giving them opportunities to, like Rosie said, create and bring that side of their nature forward. But 5 hours of homework, ridiculous.
So I want to. Oh, go ahead.
I did an experiment a couple of summers ago when I was number one overwhelmed and under. I was in what I would call a spiritual emergence process, and it was just sort of all this evolution going on all at the same time while I was needing to write and coach and work and all of those kinds of things. And at one point I sat myself down on the couch outside and I said, okay, you can't get off the couch until you can get off the couch when you're inspired, when you're inspired to get off the couch and for no other reason. And so as I was doing that my mind is distracted by, you don't deserve to have a vacation. You don't deserve to just sit here and do nothing. You don't, you're not being productive. You're not, and all of these things were distractions in a sense to that place of peacefulness and actually living my life from that place of inspiration. And so it was a great experiment for me to get clear about, when am I moved from fear, or you're not enough, or you don't deserve, and when am I moving from direct inspiration and desire? And people, when I offer this exercise, people will say, well, how do you know when it's one or the other? It's like, when you move from inspiration. You feel it.
You feel it.
Yeah. But all of those distractions that I've learned to put away, the one, like I have to do, all the overwhelm melts away when I just say, okay, you're not going to be doing. And I think that we could do this in corporations or anywhere, because it's engaging us in a much more productive and creative and desirable life. So anyway,
I mean, that's perfect, because I wanted to suggest earlier that what we distracting ourselves away from is who we really are.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
We don't want to discover who we really are. For some reason, we're afraid.
Yeah. Penny, you're gonna say something?
Yeah, I wanted to make 2 points there, because I think it's really really powerful. So when you talked about inspiration, right, and using that to really propel yourself forward, you're that much more productive when you're in that inspired state.
Absolutely.
One of my 10 core drivers in my productivity zone is purpose, which is where the inspiration is. When whether you want to call it purpose or inspiration or motivation, it's where the passion is, and it creates focus, right? How do we put a man on the moon and take on these major projects? Because we had a passion and inspiration. And so I do believe that when people can shift themselves to that they're going to get that much more focus, and they're going to get through obstacles faster, and they're just going to be that much more driven to what their heart desires, and for companies as well, it's getting that mission of what the company is about. And I think Simon Sinek talks about lead from the heart, even as a company.
What was the second thing you were going to say? 2 points.
The second thing I wanted to come back to is around fear, right? And it was striking me what you said is that the urgency and the fear are connected, because, and I think, Linda, maybe you said that earlier on, is that if we look at our youth and we're overscheduling the young people, we're giving them, because we're afraid they're not going to get into the right colleges, right? We're afraid they're not going to get onto the sports team, so we've got to give them extra counseling and coaching in sports or in music, or in our own lives. Let's say a company that I was at, they had a real challenge with clients that would call with all these urgencies, and they would make their clients' urgencies their urgencies because they were worried about losing their clients, right? It is really fear-based that's creating this over sense of urgency, and I think that once people are aware of it, I mean, as you all know, recognition is a huge a pattern interrupt as it is, because if we get curious and we recognize it, then we can say, let's see where else this is showing up, and then look for a more productive behavior like that inspiration.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And go ahead, Steve.
So what I wanted to say is I've been doing some work in corporate America, and so what I wanted to introduce here is that I've been working with this organization now almost a year. And what's interesting is that when you set up this scenario, like what we've been talking about, which is everybody's doing, everybody's afraid, the staff is afraid of management, the management is afraid that staff is not going to do what they tell them to do, and everything is based on lack, everything is based on fear.
Yes.
And guess what? They created a momentum, a huge momentum. It's like a BMW going down the highway 100 miles an hour. And I can't just go and say, stop. You can't do it. It doesn't work that way. This is something that can only, and this is just my feeling based on what I've been exposing myself to. The only thing you can do is little bits at a time work on this culture, and they have to, because unfortunately most everybody is basing their realities on their five senses. Unless they can see it, feel it, whatever, they won't believe any of this. I mean, yeah, we're doing this show, and there's some awesome messages already. But guess what? People are going, oh, well, I believe it when I see it. What you people are talking about sounds great, but
Yes.
Show me.
And the element of this all sounds good, but I got to get the paycheck, or I got to get the kids in that school that I've been trying to get them, So and it's like, it's yes, absolutely, and like you said, and most people listening will have the yes buts, and that's where the distractions come in. It's like, oh well, that's the money, the kids in school, it becomes the priority, and those become the distractions to what's my heart's desire, what's my purpose, what's my where am I fulfilled, rather than where am I in an angst and feel isolated and empty. And it's like, I think it's very confusing for people to know what to do with, I'm empty, lonely, and isolated, but I don't know how to move from needing to make the money to this place of focused, intentional, inspired living. And
I think,
go ahead.
Sorry, Rosie, I would challenge that it's not just that they don't know how, because there are some great resources out there on how.
Absolutely.
I think that they don't think they can do it. Like, as you said, because I've got to pay the bills, I've got to get my kid into college. So I think it really comes to that, is that they're not ready to change. They're afraid. I guess it comes back to fears. They can't face and overcome that fear.
That's right.
People will do what's least resistant, and what they have proved to themselves is that how they've been doing it is been working for them, even that they are complaining about it. Do you know what I mean?
Say more. Say more about that.
So it's almost like, because people don't know any other way to do it, because what we're talking about here right now is really, for people, it comes across that it's conceptual. Like people will receive this is my experience, and my experience comes from corporate America right now, because I presented this in corporate America, and it's very conceptual to them. They don't believe that they don't believe that there's another way of living other than the way they have been living.
Yes.
Those are the simple words that I have to describe it. They just won't believe it. And they basically telling me, prove it to me. So guess what I'm doing? I'm just being this being in this corporate environment, and I'm just being connected to who I really am. And I don't get distracted. I get stuff done. I get more stuff done in that office than anybody. And guess what? I never say that I'm too busy, because I'm never too busy. I'm not operating from a lack of time. Everybody else over there is operating, I don't have enough time for this stuff. I can't work 12, 14, 16 hours a day because, I'm going to check out early. That's how
I can't take it.
What comes out of that is I've just been running health lectures all across one of the states here in Australia, and what I'm coming across is the room's packed, and every time I go it's even more packed, because they're all bring a friend, and they're sicker. It's just the most amazing thing to look at, because I can tell a lot of things that are going on with people, how much hair they've got on their head, or the things they've got on their face. And I see what's happening is the stress is creating an illness that it's like I've been keeping up with the Joneses, or keeping up for so long. And when I actually asked them, how many people in this room, and it was packed to the rafters, how many people in this room get up every morning and love what they do? And out of a packed room, 3 people had their hand up.
Wow.
That was it. And I said, wow. I said, you know what? only you do stress. Nobody does stress for you or with you. You do it. So you can be stressed over procrastinating. You can be stressed over, and that can be overwhelmed. Whereas I'm thinking, what's overwhelmed about that?
Yes.
It's only you do it. It's a personal thing. So the health or the bad health that we're bringing on to ourselves, and it's really a huge issue in most countries now, is simply from, like you were saying, Penny, the urgency and the stress. The minute we're stressed, the magnesium and the calcium are all the amazing minerals that keep us inspired and keep us, you know, in an amazing place. They leave the body. It's like, I'm out of here. I don't want to live in that body anymore. So see you later. And so they take other minerals with them. And now you're even more stressed because now your muscles don't even have anything to allow them to be attracted or detracted. So they can't even pick up a shopping bag. And then you think, I've got no energy. And it goes on. And now I'm even more overwhelmed. But I just saw it for myself, and I had this big aha moment in amongst the kangaroos, Steve, while I was walking with them, is that the more, you know, the more we fall out of love with who we are and what we're doing, the more the health of a nation and the world declines to a point where it's catastrophically bad right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here?
Agree with that.
How do we?
It's an inside job, right, Penny? Oh, this is an inside job.
I think everybody here agrees it's an inside job, and unfortunately, you know, where we go from here is what each individual decides, right? And so
we can't do it
I know
for
that
anybody. We can't do it.
I'm sorry?
We can't do it for anybody. They have to do it for themselves.
Yeah.
No, we can't. And so, like you said, we've got to show in everything that we do kind of the proof, if you want to call it, and how it works
evidence
for the individuals that it works for. Look at the companies that are providing, you know, an environment that is more relaxed and isn't at a pace of urgency. I mean, there's several companies now that are actually stopping any email activity after 6 p.m. so that people actually they're respecting their family time. So I do think actually there's, coming back to corporate, in the several companies that I've been with in the last couple of months, one of the things that I've suggested is that the corporation, the people who are setting the rules, help to look at what they're doing in the environment to foster that and what they can change to make, like these companies that are saying no email, so that you're not going to get an email or a text message after you leave the office that you have to respond to, and in the middle of dinner feel that you have to do something, right? So it can go both ways. So I'd like to put a call to action to the corporations, the people running the corporations, to help to make a difference by changing some of the rules in the environment.
That's very good. And the reason I keep bringing corporate into this is because, come on, we spend more time, everybody spends more time at work than we spend with our families, right? I mean, minimum people spend 8 to 10, 12 hours working every day. I mean, that's a lot more than anybody can spend with their families.
And there was a statistic, was it last week or the week before, someone was saying that we spend like 11 hours on our electronics, which is another, in a sense, huge distraction from our sense of who we are with ourselves. So that was, that's huge. So that's, I mean, there's work, and certainly part of that is being in front of electronics, but a lot of us are spending our downtime, our recreation time, engaged with that.
So let me bring this up. Okay, so one of the suggestions I made for this company is get a ping pong table, for God's sake. Guess how it was received by management? No, we can't have that because then everybody will be playing ping pong and we're not going to get anything done, and there's no trust. It's like, come on. And you know what I said, go check out Google, go check out Apple. I can give you a whole bunch of big corporations that you can go to their offices and you're going to see games and people are playing and people are taking a break all over the place. And it doesn't mean that they're not productive, it means the actual opposite. But in
Yes.
order for that to occur,
Opposite.
for that to happen, to become real, management has to trust.
They also have to engage in their intelligence versus, in a sense, the group mentality and thinking in terms of how it used to be. And we're not. A lot of people aren't using their intelligence. The amount of research about exactly what you're saying, or what we're all saying, Steve, in terms of recreation and these places of more release and less stress. There's huge evidence for that, but we're not using. Are not using our intelligence to utilize that, even in terms of, like we say, it's an inside job. And again, we hear the evidence all the time even on the news when they're reporting great things are happening, and this is what we know. We're not using our intelligence to engage it in our lives, in our practices.
Right, and it's because of the stress, right? The stress is keeping us in that fight or flight mode, and it's keeping us from making quality decisions.
Yes, beautiful.
And I say us again, it's the collective.
Yes.
And one of the things I noticed on the weekend training in the country was I set up 3 workshops, and the universe just gave me this amazing idea. And what I did was I ran this goal-achieving program, and I just said, just write out. Look, forget about the how, because that's the universe's job. The universe will bring you everything you need when you're really clear about what you want. So just write out, how happy and grateful you'd be if you had whatever that is. And you don't have to share it, whatever. I'm not big on sharing goals, because then, if you don't get it, you've got to face up to somebody. It's your goal. And then I asked them, what were the blocks? What were the things that may have stopped you getting that goal in the past? In other words, what are those things in your dendrites, in the neurons, that have stopped you reaching that goal? If stress is one of them, etc. And then what we did the next day, we ran a course called Getting Rid of Limits. And we cleared, if people could come with their limits, it could be I'm not good enough, I don't deserve, all those top ones. And we cleared as many as we could in the day. Then we ran a health talk. Wow, it was such a big success. I'm so grateful for the universal suggestion, because I just got an email or phone call yesterday to say, can you do what you just did right across the country? Okay then. Because what's happening is we may set a goal, but if we're unaware of what's limiting us with that goal, if we're doing it with our stress, with our limits, it's going to be a puny goal anyway. So we're not going to feel that happy about getting up and doing it. But if we've got the opportunity for someone to care enough that they're willing to help you release whatever it is that's blocking you, and it's usually time or money, or I don't, deserve, or I'm not good enough, or quite often I put all that together. And once we release that, it's just amazing the lightness that people feel. Just huge. So I think we've not only got to set our new goals and start looking at who we are, but what's been stopping us from doing that earlier, and how can we go and clear that? What can we do to release that?
One of the things that when I was learning to coach was that when I was in coach training, I was reading that the fact is that most of us do not want coaching. Most of us, especially in the United States, we're independent, and we don't think we need somebody to assist us in getting our goals met. Now, therapy, people go to therapy primarily because they have a problem or there's something wrong, as opposed to saying, I've got an idea, I've got an ideal, I've got a desire I want to fulfill. Will you, Linda, or will you, Penny, help me make that happen? And so there's that resistance to getting help or getting support or getting that thinking partner that's going to help make the difference in bringing about quality life and the fulfillment of our human spirit. But I think if people, it always drives me crazy the number of people that resist getting support, resist getting that thinking partner that's going to make a difference. Penny, do you want to speak to that too?
Wow, it's a hard one because it's interesting. I think there's a paradox there. I think there's more people going for coaching than ever before. The coaching industry is really exploding. So from one perspective, I think people are reaching out, but I'm not sure it's because they're inspired to get to the next level as much as they see coaching in parallel with therapy. So they have a problem. My business isn't doing well. Or they have a problem and they're seeking coaching through the problem. And I do think that it's human nature that we go 10 times more away from pain than we do towards pleasure. So I do think that that's what creates the urgency, and so that's why people are more likely to reach out when there's a problem. And so I do see that more often than not. I think that it's people who are more evolved and more confident in themselves that tend to reach out in an already successful place, looking to go to that next successful place. That's sort of my experience. I don't know if you've all experienced the same thing.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Well, what I've been experiencing is that for most people, they have this belief that life is happening to them. They're not realizing that everything that's happening and everything that they have created and whatever the complaint is or the problems are or whatever is working and whatever is not working is their own creation. That has to be driven home, is that nobody's doing it to you. You're doing it to you.
Right. Well, you know what I would suggest to that, Steve, is there's, and again, I know that, and what you said before was really powerful, that most people who don't understand, they see it as conceptual. But if people can just get in the place of being curious, if you recognize that you're angry, you're sad, you're hurt, you have fear, shame, guilt, whatever of those, let's call them unproductive or
you don't feel good. That doesn't feel good. None of that feels
I don't want to
good.
call them negative because they serve a purpose, but to recognize it and get curious and be like, wow, I wonder what's going on here. Right? If we can just do that as a first step of recognizing that things aren't good. Wow, I'm stressed. I wonder what's going on. If we can get curious, I think that triggers in some deeper thinking, some intelligence, as you said, Rosie, that we've lost through that stress. That can sort of shift us, give us a different perspective, so that we can look at it, examine it. I wonder if I should see how many times a day or how many times a week I feel this way. Maybe I'll find a pattern and something that I can then do something about, right? If we get curious, then we get into a place where we can find solutions. So if nothing more, maybe we should all be avengers of curiosity.
I'm right
and
behind
it's based on our emotions. I mean, you called it just perfectly. I mean, if people would just pay attention to their emotions and when they're not feeling good, they got to ask the question, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? Don't you think? And maybe people could say, well, if I would know the solution to this, I probably would have done it already. Obviously, I don't.
Oh, I hear that all
maybe
the time.
I need help. But I think
the universe always has an answer.
If I already knew the solution. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just saying, the universe always has an answer. So to trust, like you were saying before, Steve, and to trust the universal energy. Sometimes I just stop. Like on the weekend, what I did, I got people to stand up, and I said, this is now. Right here, where you're standing is now. I got them all to turn to the left, and I said, that's your past. All it is a perception of reality. It wasn't reality. It was your perception of reality. Why do I know that? Because when my mum passed away, 7 children got up and talked about what it was like to be raised by this woman. You would have thought we were on different planets. So that was our perception. Same house, same school, same food, same parents. We all had a totally different perception of what reality was to us. So then I got them to turn the other way. And I said, so then in the future, that's a perception of your reality. That hasn't even happened yet. So how can you be nervous about it? Go create it. Come back to now. Just stand still. This is what you've got right here, right now. Why don't we just really work on this now? And it was really, oh my God, there were so many ahas in the room. It was just wonderful. And it just, again, just asking the universe, because your subconscious mind, which is 96% of you, it's the universe talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I just trust that implicitly. If I get a cramp or if I get something, I'll go, okay, thank you for reminding me that I haven't taken enough magnesium today, or whatever it is I need to do.
I mean, maybe we can create a product, and the product could be, so I'm being like innovative right now. So if there would be a way to take what's in our head and put it on external speakers, that would be one heck of a product, wouldn't it?
It'd be loud.
It's coming soon. I can imagine.
Because then somebody could be listening and going like, oh, wow. So what's your experience, anybody's on the show, of what you are asking for during the day? Because I had some incredible light bulbs go off when I looked at that. What am I asking for?
I had a client who came in. She was really upset because her friends were not being friends. They were not taking care of her. They were not attending to her. And essentially we talked about how it was a projection in a sense of how she wasn't taking care of herself. And so when we got, I was kind of, turning the screw a little bit tighter to say, what is it that's keeping you from taking care of yourself? And she said, the responsibility for taking care of myself is too great. So I want other people to do it, and I just want to, go watch TV kind of thing. I want other people to attend to me because the responsibility of taking care of my own life is too great. And my sense is that so many people feel that, because again, as we're sort of have been describing, we haven't given ourselves an opportunity to really know who we are. So we're just this thing that's happening, and we don't know how to take care of us. And so maybe Steve, or Penny, or Linda, how to take care of me. So I'm gonna kind of back away. I'll just go distract myself, and hopefully
that's almost like one step away from suicide.
I think it is. I think it's a form of insanity. I really do.
Yeah.
I really do. It's really scary inside most of us.
And it's not just an adult problem, Rosie. I'm dealing with a client now that's 12, and she has a similar situation. It's I said, how would school become more exciting for you? She said, if I was to walk into school with somebody else. In other words, I don't want to do it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I need somebody with me in order to even walk into this new school. And I need this, and I mean, I've worked out what's been happening in the end, but it was a real challenging situation for me as a coach to even think about where on earth did she get the thoughts that she's got, because I know the family. And then I think, oh my gosh, if we're thinking at that age already what is that going to be like as an adult?
Yeah.
How is that going to present in another world, in an adult world? And that's a scary thought.
Yes. And I think it's highly prevalent.
Mm.
And I think that's why we distract ourselves. Give me more TV. Give me more movies. I don't want to be with this.
Give me more drugs. Give me more to drink. Give me more of this. Give me more of that. Give me more sex.
Yeah. And as
you had to throw that in there.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know why? Because that was one of my solutions in my past. Give me more sex and everything will be fine. Heck no. Then I would feel I'm loved. No. So that's another thing. All these conditions, we set all these conditions that has to be met in order for us to be happy. And, I can say that I pretty much turned that around for myself. I'm experiencing having less and less and less. I don't put conditions. I'm just being happy and joyful as much as possible because, guess what?
'Cause you
I
want
can't
to.
think of any other way to live my life anymore.
Yeah.
What else is there? I know the BMW isn't going to do it. I've done that too. It will
Right.
it
That's
I
will
why.
think
make
it's
me
a
happy.
really
It will make me happy for a very short time. As soon as I
And
have it and I'm sitting in it and driving it, it's over. It's on to the next. What's next? What do I have to get next to be happy?
Penny, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that's something that I do work with a lot of my clients around, understanding sort of the rules that they've set up for success, for being happy, for because we kind of need to be aware of what all these expectations are. I have a little framework that I talk about is when we live in a place of high expectations, we reduce our flexibility. And so therefore I see that kind of quadrant of a triangle, I see that as self-sabotage. And what's interesting that I noticed in the relationship that I had in business, that when something shifted in the trust that I had for that person, and this could be individual too, a trust that someone has for themselves, the expectations go up. It doesn't make any sense. Somebody said to me, it doesn't make any sense. I said, it doesn't need to make sense. It is emotional,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's a protection mechanism that I will set more rules. I will set more rules and make it that much more difficult for either others to meet it or for me to meet it, reduces our flexibility and keeps us in that self-sabotage. So, Steve, I would agree with you that when we can reduce the amount of expectations that we have and focus more on the intent and what we're looking for and only set, let's say, boundaries instead of a ton of rules, just have boundaries to say this is, this is a must or a must not in terms of being happy. I must be able to, provide for myself or whatever the musts and must nots are, but really lessen. I know we can't reduce them entirely, but as much as possible, get rid of those rules, those expectations.
Mm.
And conditions, right?
And
So,
what
Right,
underlies
the same
that? What underlies that is a trust, in a sense, letting go of the rules
Trust.
and is trust, and in a sense that leap of faith is if I can, and that's what a lot of us are lacking. We lack the self-trust to act according to our own inner guide, and so again, that's a place where we distract ourselves.
And you've
let
only
me,
got to do it once. It's like when you take that leap of faith, and it can be a small leap of faith. It doesn't have to be the Grand Canyon. But when you take that little leap of faith and you just jump over into the future to do it, you think, oh, why didn't I do that earlier?
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
no big deal.
Yeah.
So once you do it, once you go, and just before a leap of faith, ironically enough, there's usually what we call a terror barrier. Some sort of emotion comes up, and you can go one way or the other, right? Maslow says I step forward into the future, or I step back into comfort zone. So if by stepping forward and you think, oh my gosh, why did I take so long to do that? It wasn't such a big deal. And then next time you recognize it, you got that little bit of nervousness, and you go, no, I want this. I'm going to step into it. So stepping into something is really powerful because you're letting go of all the inhibitions, you're letting go of all the blockages, you're letting go of the overwhelm, and you're trusting that the universe would never give you an idea that you cannot do. I think that's an important point. You'll always be given, and yes, it may be huge at the time, but you'll always be able to do whatever you've been given to do. And that's what I firmly believe, and I live by it. So by stepping into one, then you go, oh my God, this is so exciting. Let's step into another one. Let's step into another one, and then all of a sudden stepping into becomes your new habit, and you get more and more excited. It's just that once. When can you, the first time you want to do that? And that's where I think the coaches are really handy, to take you by the hand and say, let's go. Let's just take that step together, and it wasn't so bad, was it? I actually did it in my house here yesterday with a coaching client. I said, here you are standing here full of anxiety. Yeah? So if you step out of that, 2 steps, just take 2 steps forward. I said, now you've just tricked the subconscious mind to thinking you're in the future. and there's no anxiety there. Isn't that interesting? So how does that look successful? What does it look like to you to be here right now with whatever you were anxious about? How does that look successful? And he started listing what it was like, and then I said, what do you need to do to make that your reality now? What do you need to do? And who do you need to be to make that your reality? He was so excited. It was like the whole angst just left.
Just become the feeling, how it
Yes.
feels
Yeah.
when you already get, when you see, this is how people have it, that they have to do all this stuff. It's the do. This is the craziness
Yeah.
in this country. Do, because once I do it all, then I'll be successful. Well,
Yeah.
how about turning that upside down and just be the beautiful, loving person that you can be and joyful person you can be right now. I can generate it right now in this moment, and everything will just unfold beautifully. You don't have to have all these conditions and all these doings and all these things that at some point we'll get somewhere and then we'll be happy. I don't think it works that way.
I don't
Because
think it works that way either.
It hasn't worked that way for me. So
And one of the things
Yeah.
I love about being on this show, or one of the intentions of being on this show, is, you know, the guests and the hosts, is there's a reflection of that it works. You know, it's like 12-step program. It works. Keep on coming. Keep on going. And it's like if there's enough of us that keep saying this works, this actually works, that the audience, people in the audience will go, okay, it works for Linda and Penny and Steve and Rosie and Jamie
and Nina and Jamie
and Nina
the list goes on.
and
Yeah.
and Kareem and all of the guests that come on. Maybe there's something to this. Maybe I can trust that if it works for them, it could work for me. And so I'm gonna think about this a little more seriously. I'm gonna check out their websites. I'm gonna start thinking about this with more intelligence. That if it works for some people, it's got to work for me. I just gotta let it work for me.
We're no
So-
different
Take
than
that
them.
step.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
no different than any one of you or anybody else.
Yeah.
They're
Absolutely.
We're
Absolutely.
the same thing. So you guys already started the solutions. I was going to start it 5 minutes before showtime, but actually Linda started the solutions. So I'm just going to give one. My solution to this distraction thing is just one thing. We got to learn how to fall in love with ourselves.
Yeah.
That's it. What's yours?
My solution. I jumped in.
Rosie. That's okay.
Go
That's
ahead,
fine,
Rosie.
My solution is get very, very clear about what it is you really, really want in your life. I'll always ask my clients and say, I'm your fairy godmother, and I want to know what you really want. And in them getting clear about what they really want, they can get more focused and intentional and begin to potentially trust that that's what they can create. And be
Awesome.
willing to let go of the distractions from that.
Yep.
Penny?
And you, Penny?
Well, mine is really around, we talked about it, it's kind of getting curious and paying attention. It starts there, and then what I talk about is that, you know, we said everybody's so focused on time and all these other things, is to really, how we show up for the time that we had is what's important. That's where paying attention shows up, is how we manage our energy. That's the difference between a day that's in flow and a day that is like death by 1,000 paper cuts.
That's a good one.
So, you know, when I talk about, there's a couple elements I believe that make up how we manage our energy, and a lot of them we've talked about. It would be purpose, language, that self-talk, focus, the direction of our focus towards lack or towards what we want, and our physiology, right? We talked about all of those today, and I believe those all combined together, any one of those, to shift on them, help us to pay attention, to show up in the best way possible, because it will shift the way we show up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Linda, did you say your piece? Or do you have any
yeah,
more?
it basically, so for me, like what Penny was just saying is absolutely real. On the weekend, I had a birthday, and I just, nobody even knew. I just showed up, I did my thing, and I thought, and everyone's wishing me happy birthday, and you can do this, and you can do that. And I suppose you're going to go out. And I was driving for 11 hours to get back from the country so I could be back here to do what I'd promised people back here the following day. And you know what? And tomorrow, I'll go celebrate my birthday. It's not even my birthday, but but you know what? It's like just have some balance in your life. Get to love who you are. I can't wait to see my son. Have some time out. But when I showed up for the people that I was already booked into, I really showed up. We had the best fun.
Awesome.
And it's created so much more.
Yeah, fantastic. So we prove this on this show every time we do Living Consciously TV, is time doesn't really exist. Because look, this conscious hour has gone by so fast. I don't have an experience of it as an hour. Does any one of you has an experience? No. We actually, you know, we're connected to each other. We had fun. Our frequencies tuned. We were vibrating at the same frequency. I haven't read really Penny's book, or I looked at her website, but you know, I'm learning that I don't have to do that anymore, because when we people that are like-minded and we get together like this, the truth happens to be our personal truth. When we kind of put our cards out on the table, it's the same. And I've proven it over and over and over that we're different, but we're really not that different, because the ultimate universal truth, the many different truths that are out there, we all using them. And that makes it really easy to have a dialogue like this, and we don't need to have anything scripted, because it's the truth.
It flows.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Penny. You were absolutely awesome. I love the theme because I think it's so useful to talk about this, and I hope that and I let go. I don't have any conditions that this show becomes viral, but it would be nice if it does. So for everybody else out there that are watching, tune into this show. Keep watching this show. Tell your friends. Tell whoever you care about and love, including yourself. Keep watching these shows, because the more you watch them, the more they get up on the top 10 every month. And we announce the top 10, and they have the possibility to go to public television as well as to this new social TV site that's coming on this summer. I love you all. This was absolutely fantastic. I love this conversation, and I don't think I will ever stop. Not even after I'm out of here. Thank you all. Thank you for the cast. Another awesome evening. I believe we touched, moved, and inspired not just each other, but the viewers out there. Thank you so much. See you guys next time.
All right. Good night.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.